All right, we're live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I really appreciate your patience waiting for us. I'm excited to have this conversation today. It's going to be really interesting. We've got Oliver Rowlands with us today. We have some student ambassadors with us. I'd love to do some intros, actually, and just keep it brief. But I'd really love to highlight each one of you. So I'd love to hear, uh, just so everybody knows who you are, obviously. But today we're talking about 3D first workflows, and I just want to make just this statement. 3D first workflows are now adopted by some of the leading footwear brands and OEMs, but they had to start somewhere in transitioning their traditional approaches to this way of working. Gravity Sketch provides an intuitive way of creating and expediting the process in 3D, but we'll hear today more of what the learning curve looks like. So I've brought on Oliver Rowlands today, our very own, and then we have some student ambassadors with us today. They're going to give their interesting insights into when they first adopted Gravity Sketch, and not just Gravity Sketch, but implementing 3D in general into their workflows, and into the design process. And so, yeah, let's just do intros real quick. My name is Jaron Dorman, obviously, and I work on the marketing team. I definitely just love talking to people like yourselves, in the community, designers in the community, and so that's really what I do, and it's a great pleasure of mine. But Oliver, let's throw it over to you. You know what do you do?
Straight in there. I love it. Hey,
Yeah.
first, Jaron, thank you for having me. I've seen these a few times, and I can't believe it's taken a year and a half to get me on them, but I'm glad to finally be here. But yes, I'm Oliver. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I've worked here for a year and a half, I think, not too long, but I've been a part of a blooming fantastic rock solid team here at Gravity Sketch. We focus on customer operations, and that includes that initial onboarding and a little bit of further training. It's a part of the role that I'm super passionate about, and being able to help individuals hit their potential is something I adore. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Who should we go to?
Thanks,
Should we
Ollie.
go, John?
Let's do it.
Hey, I'm John. I'm a industrial design student, studying at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and I'm also start taking classes in footwear design. And so I've had the opportunity to use Gravity Sketch through some of my class projects, and it's been super helpful.
Nice.
Sarah, why don't you go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm an industrial designer as well. I graduated from the Savannah College of Arts and Design in 2021, and now I'm finishing my master's program in sports product design at the University of Oregon. And yeah, I love footwear design. I would say my specialty.
That's awesome.
My name's Inti MacDonald. I'm a recent graduate of Western Washington's industrial design program. And I'm interested in all walks of design. Any way that I can use Gravity Sketch, I'm stoked for. So, yeah.
Nice.
Sweet. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all being here, by the way. And I know that it's tricky, getting schedules to work and everything. So really appreciate it. But let's just dive right into it. So obviously we're talking about 3D first workflows. So I want to throw it over to you first, Oliver, what your experience has been with, your observations really, especially with onboarding on those that are adopting Gravity Sketch into their workflow, and starting with that 3D first experience. Because sometimes, obviously, the goal is that it, solve some problems up front. But I really want to hear your thoughts and what your observations have been, just on that topic.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, because I think what's happening, and I've got a very unique perspective, I believe, because I'm not initially a designer. I've originally come into this from a training background and learning different SASs and being able to implement them. And as I've come in here, I've only really known this 3D first way of design. And I'm sure you guys will be able to tell me from your studies that that's just not the case. And I know that because from certain clientele that I've worked with, it's just flipped their process maybe not upside down. We've added into it, but it's flipped their mindset, I believe, because I think one thing that I found really fascinating was I was working with a client who was developing tech packs 2D, just fully 2D. And they were sending that across to potentially manufacturers, trying to get them designed, and even people on a smaller scale who are just trying to create nice 3D prints. When you are taking this 3D thought in your mind and then trying to convey that in 2D, it's so open to interpretation from any other parties when they try and interpret it back into 3D. So I find it so fantastic seeing people's minds when they're like, I completely get that. It's here in 3D. And now that I've got a 3D tech pack, I can really visualize and see how that's going to come together. Yeah, we can get into the training more a little bit later, but I don't know, guys. How about yourself? Are you finding that from your studies it was more 2D and now having this 3D full workflow is just completely new, or is my perspective really still that of a trainer rather than a designer? How's it been? I mean, John, I think we actually trained a bit together, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how have you
So,
found
so when I first started, the first classes that I started to take when I was in school was learning perspective drawing and a lot of other stuff like that, and how to
it?
represent stuff on paper. And so, like, being introduced into a software that immediately lets you represent things in 3D, because learning how to represent perspective, it was learning theory and a lot of stuff behind that. But Gravity Sketch, you're just learning a tool, and then you can represent everything in 3D really quickly. So it takes away a lot of like the initial learning curve, so you can create what's in your mind really quickly, because we interact in a 3D world. We're in a we're in the real world, so it's just intuitive to think in a 3D space like that. And Gravity Sketch gives you the tools to be able to sketch in a 3D environment and be able to take the model and view it from all angles, which I thought was incredibly powerful for some of the workflows.
Yeah, nice, nice. How about Inti or Zara?
Um, yeah, same thing. I got a Quest 2 when it came out, which was sophomore year of my industrial design program. So kind of learning those same principles all at the same time as um, you know, hopping into this really amazing program with all this possibility,
Mm.
which is kind of overwhelming at first, but also, as soon as I um, got familiar with, what the tools were capable of, it became very clear where that was just super useful and kind of better than the traditional way, I would say. It doesn't replace any of uh, those principles, but it actually, I found that it very much enhanced them. I think that, you do some 2D sketching, you hop into Gravity Sketch and flesh something out. And then when you go back and do more sketching, you're kind of inspired and enthused. And I found it really helping those, just building off of those other principles. So,
I have a
Yeah.
Yeah.
question. Oh, sorry. Actually, Sarah, I want to hear your answer, and then I have a follow up question that I
So,
was I was triggered with. But yeah, go ahead.
no, I guess like yeah, but going from what the guys are saying, definitely bringing like though like obviously yeah we start with a sketch, right? That's kind of like how design starts, putting an idea on paper. But I feel like it's really hard to go into like orthographic views or developing a technical drawing if you haven't really figured out the whole picture of it. So I feel like in that ideation stage, I think that Gravity Sketch is super valuable to like really make the idea make sense, in 3D. And from there, you can keep developing on Gravity Sketch or bring it to other software. So I think definitely for me, I think that was part of like the process that kind of everything clicked in a way. And then from there, you can explore even prototyping, and it just opens up a world in that sense.
Thank you guys. Yeah, that's really yeah, I appreciate you guys sharing your experiences there and your thoughts. I want to know what was your level of experience with 3D before learning Gravity Sketch? So, Sarah, I'd love to hear your answer on this. You know, did you have any 3D experience before starting, or was Gravity Sketch your first introduction to that?
So when I first, I guess, discovered Gravity Sketch, I had experience with SolidWorks and Rhino. I want to say my skills were like, um, I was still learning. You know, I didn't really knew how to make everything there. And back then, or when I discovered Gravity Sketch, for example, Rhino didn't have like sub D options or like ways to make more complex forms that maybe other softwares would be able to, but Gravity Sketch could. And that during that time, I was obsessed with trying to make a shoe, right? And yeah, I tried making a shoe in Rhino that time. Didn't It wasn't the best shoe. It wasn't great. It took me so long to figure out. And then with Gravity Sketch, it was like, whoa, I could get a last here. Like I can understand the proportions, the anatomy of a foot better, and I have it in my hands. I'm doing it with my hands, and I could 3D print it right away and make a mold out of it. And it was just like a process that became really like streamlined for me, and it just helped me improve and understand in that, for example, category of things you can create in Gravity Sketch. Footwear was like, wow, like this really pushed my skills, you know. So definitely brought all of that together, and it also helped me understand other programs after that because of same, you know, terminology in 3D, you know, like sub D, like baking, all of those things that also translate to other programs. It just made it more intuitive, and yeah.
Yeah. And to John, what were your experiences before Gravity Sketch?
Um, same thing. You know, as I mentioned before, um, it was sophomore year for me, so we were just diving into you know, our education on a little bit of Rhino, eventually SolidWorks. I had dabbled with Blender as I was trying to get into the program, but it was yeah, it was all kind of simultaneous. So Gravity Sketch, in a way, was one of my first introductions to 3D. Um, and yeah, I mean, it just totally blew my mind. Um, really, really cool. But I think Sarah did a good job explaining all the uses and how that translates.
And so I used Blender, SolidWorks, and Rhino before I picked up Gravity Sketch. And one of the large differences that I found between the softwares is using those more desktop style softwares, interacting with the environment seemed a little bit more robotic, and not you're not as involved with the process. One thing that I really enjoyed about Gravity Sketch is that you're in there with the scene. You can pull yourself into the model. You can drag the points around, and like you can be like really intimate with the model and really understand the form and complexities of the model that you can't really understand as well when you're just looking at a desktop environment.
Yeah, I could completely echo that. I find it. I mean, look, I've come from this with next to no 3D background, and I think if I was to dive into another software where it wasn't the computer, I would find it so much more difficult. Because John, that phrase "intimate" is exactly that. The way that you could sort of just scale in and move around, I find so natural. I don't know if that could be the right word, because it's weirdly not natural having the headset on, but it does somehow feel like that. And sorry to butt in here, Jared, but I'm
Please
just
do.
wondering. I was listening, and a lot of you were saying you're getting. Oh, I kind of was hearing you're getting the benefit from the ideation and the starting and the creation, whereas I mentioned I'm finding it closer to the end of the design. So yeah, what's the selling point for Gravity Sketch? What's that actual, like, yes, this is the software? Is it the intimacy? Is it being able to have so much freedom in the creation, or is it like just having that Tony Stark moment where you can be stood up in a room drawing, bring a car in and use pass-through mode to sketch over it? What's like the sort of like the golden ticket moment for you?
I would say is having full control of what you want to create. I feel like sometimes with 3D softwares, it could be like, oh yeah, you have this design and you're trying to follow certain steps to get it to the point that's closer to what you want to make. And sometimes even the 3D program like dictates the design. I would not dictates, but like it can, I guess, like get you constricted.
Hmm.
I feel like with Gravity Sketch you have full control, so you're fully the one like making the design how you wanted it. So I feel like that's part of what it gives a lot of value to Gravity Sketch. And I think also, yeah, the iterative process, like you can make so many prototypes in one, I guess, space. And you can do it fast, you can change it and just export it and just prototype. That's in my case. I would say that also at the end of the process it has value of adding details to your final design. But in my experience, I feel like the iterative process is like what Gravity Sketch is all about for me.
Love it, love it. No, that's brilliant. Would either Inti, John like to weigh in, or would you just echo that of Zara?
Sure.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Definitely the iterative process. The other thing that
Yeah.
came to mind for me was, collaboration, like the ability. I think there's so much potential there. The ability to, I mean, obviously be in the same space at the same time, and even, um, work on the same model at the same time. If you're really meshed with another person, you can amplify your creative potential. And I don't think that that's nearly as successful when you're on two different 2D, computer screens trying to um, like work on a 3D model. I don't think it's yeah, nearly as intuitive, but that that is really killer.
Nice,
For,
nice.
for me, it's the options that Gravity Sketch provides. So when you're starting off, you can create the 3D model in there, and then based off that, if you want to just stop there, you can create kind of like a presentation room within Gravity Sketch, and then use like the in-app features to create a slideshow that you can pull up on your desktop and other stuff like that. But if you want to push it further, you have the 3D model, and Gravity Sketch has a lot of other tools to export to other softwares. So you can take the model and put it into KeyShot, and get better lighting, rendering, and other stuff. Or you could take it into like a Grasshopper or something like that and add textures and like really push the details in that. And at the end, you can then render it and export it back into Gravity Sketch with all those details, so you can show off like the whole process. So it's really cool because it provides options for almost every aspect of the design phase, and every like where you want to stop in the design phase is honestly sometimes a difficult decision for me. And so like it allows me to stop at one place and then seamlessly pick up um that
Hmm.
place down the road if I need to pick it back up again.
Something
Yeah, that's
something I'd like to emphasize too is that like this is something that comes up a lot, and we say a lot too, in these lives and just in conversation, is that Gravity Sketch is not trying to replace like any of these other 3D tools. In fact, we want to play very well with a lot of the other 3D tools that are out there. Um, and really, I think Shay, obviously, he talks about this much better, our CEO, but he talks about how, it's really this like this connection between what's in here and just literally getting it out and obviously communicating it with others. That sort of in between space that really like a lot of the 2D tools don't seem to allow much room for exploration. Um, and so I really want to distill it. And a lot of you actually really have already really been touching on this, honestly. But putting Gravity Sketch aside, what are your thoughts on 3D first in the design pipeline? Do you find yourself doing that very often? Um, Working in 3D in the beginning, are there pros, are there cons to that? What are your thoughts on that? I guess that general idea of working that way in design. And anybody can go, but Sarah, why don't you go? Why don't you start?
No, 3D first. I would say, I guess as designers or how they teach us in design school, it wouldn't be 3D first usually. Usually starts 2D, I would say most of the time. Research, right? Research phase, and then like kind of from there studying the user or whatever, and then going into more like technical, I guess sketches, and then technical drawings, and then from there 3D, right? I feel like 3D usually in design school is more like end phase kind of. You wouldn't usually think about it in the initial stages, and it's more for like final product, or if you're prototyping. Um, but yeah, you could possibly prototype with like a foam core. That was like the things you use back then. Now it's more 3D printing, right? Um, but there's definitely a lot of stages to get to 3D. How people used to see it, I guess, is more of like final, almost flushed out idea. And I feel like that's where I guess Gravity Sketch connects that bridge. It's like you have that option now to like jump right
Mm,
into 3D and kind of streamline that process, and just makes it easier to understand your idea faster too.
gotcha. Yeah, thank you. I didn't know if you guys had Inti or John, but I just wanted to zero in on that point because um, not at all. We're definitely not trying to say like we're a replacement or that we are because a lot of us actually mistake us for for being sort of like a Rhino type tool or a CAD type tool, just because there are CAD type sort of tools in Gravity Sketch, um, but I can tell you from an internal perspective, the team anytime they deliberate over a new tool or a new feature, it's always with the consideration of does this help people express their ideas better? Does this help people convey what they're trying to convey better? That is always the cap that they have on their head, and I just love that because it keeps that consistency across the product. And it's a really difficult thing because I've seen our product team talk about like, do we add this? Do we not? Like, because it's obviously helpful in the 2D side of things, with other tools. And so this is, I think, the constant tension, good tension, I would say, that we have coming from the community in terms of requests of features. But we can dive some more into that a bit later. But uh, I would love to know
Uh,
from all of you.
I was gonna say one.
Oh
I was
yeah,
gonna say one
go
more
ahead,
thing
John.
about the 3D first workflow, or getting
Okay,
into
yeah,
3D
please.
as soon as you can. So like it's helpful because when you're when you're designing, eventually everything is going to be a physical product eventually as an industrial designer. Like that's the goal. And so when you're sketching and stuff on paper, when your design is in the millimeters, and so when you're like changing a line on paper and stuff, you're not really 100% sure if that's accurately conveying what you're trying to show. So you can the sooner you can jump into 3D, it allows you to compare the models side by side, so you can really see the subtle changes side by side that aren't as easy to tell on paper.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I would love to I would love to zero in on the learning curve for each of you, and I'd love to hear this from you as well, Oliver. Um, especially because of the fact that you're not a designer. I think that's actually really interesting. And also like your observation too, obviously working with students. So, but I would love to know what was the learning curve of getting into 3D. You can talk about Gravity Sketch. You can talk about other 3D tools that you were learning as well during your education. What was the learning curve like? Was it difficult? Was it easy for you? And I imagine this would be pretty subjective answer, but maybe Inti, you go first.
Yeah, for me, uh, I think the learning curve for me revolved around just understanding the layout of the tools, like where they are, um, and what they're capable of, which is I think similar to most programs. That first whatever 10, 20 hours that it takes to just have a sense of where everything is. But I think what differed was after that moment, after the initial effort, it became exponentially easier. It felt very intuitive, almost like I had somehow been there before, um, in a really cool way. It was just that moment. I remember reflecting on that moment of being in there, and just total flow state, working. Um, and so, yeah, I think that it's similar to most programs initially, but then exponentially more intuitive than 2D softwares because, like people mentioned before, um, it's 3D. It's the way we perceive the world and interact with the world. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's nice. Nice. And I mean, John, you must have good things to say because, of course, you had the best trainer out there going. Come on, that's got to be.
So so prior to Gravity Sketch, I had zero VR experience or anything. So I picked up a VR headset exclusively for the reason to use Gravity Sketch. So the VR environment was new to me. Gravity Sketch was also new to me. But it was the learning curve was pretty quick, because it was just more about learning where the buttons are in there, and then once you understand where the buttons are and what they do, you essentially just have a whole tool set that you're free to create with, and you're not really fighting like the theory or anything behind it. It's just like you put a line down and it works how it's supposed to. And so like it was it was pretty it was really easy to pick up for me, honestly.
Yeah,
And having a good trainer as well doesn't hurt.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry.
no, I also relate to that experience. The first time that I pick up, it was like my first time in VR, first headset I ever wore, the Oculus, and I got it just for Gravity Sketch. Like that's what I wanted the Oculus just for that, because I knew it was gonna like really push my skills, and I could see like the possibilities and like the things you could do with it. So, and I think you guys also do a great job on like YouTube tutorials, and I feel like I just watched a few of those and I got it right away. And I don't know, it was really intuitive, and natural, and yeah, it got me excited. Maybe at the first few Gravity Sketch projects were not great. Maybe a little, the proportions were a little off, but you're excited because you're like creating something that you've been having in your mind for a while, and it's like, wow, it's so easy, I can do it here, and then I could 3D print it and I could make it something real. I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Like,
no. Oh, go on. Sorry.
to add to that, I was curious, and so like I asked my dad if he wanted to throw on the headset and try it out. And so like honestly, within he hadn't had any VR experience or anything like that. He put on the headset, put the controllers in his hand, and I was like, all right, in your dominant hand, press the purple button, do this, kind of like what the trainers were walking me through doing. And within 20 minutes, he was putting his own lines and surfaces down, which was really cool.
That is
Wow.
awesome. I love that. And the thing is, I just want to echo what all three of you said there. I mean, it's fantastic to hear, and you're all perfectly valid in exactly what you said and the struggles. It's something I feel you have to go through to get the most out of the software. But I love that, Zara, that you mentioned the YouTube tutorials. They're fantastic. John, get your father into the new self onboarding rooms. Go to the learn tab, get him in, get them going. And into it's brilliant to hear as well from your point of view. And I think it's one of these things, right? When you learn a new software, it's tough. The first time I picked up Photoshop, I don't know about you, but I was awful for months. I'm so slow. I was so bad. And then you got to remember with Gravity Sketch, not only are you learning a new software, but you're also learning a whole new medium. You know, if I went to you and I said, look, let's learn this software. I want you to press and hold the shift and then tap the right mouse button. You'd know what I'm talking about. But John, you described what we would say perfectly. Use your dominant hand and tap the purple button. Fantastic. But what on earth does that mean? It's bonkers. It's so surreal learning that. And the only way you could do it, although it being semi-natural once you get past that bell curve, is just by getting in and sitting through a project. I see this big thing with new starters where, let's say you're starting that shoe. Like Zara, you mentioned you'd start a shoe and you'd bring it in. Maybe you do a little sketch on a napkin and you bring it into a room and you sketch over that and you mirror it and it's a lovely symmetrical shoe. But then you learn about how you can import a last and you're like, well, let me scrap that. I'm going to start again. And then you learn a new technique and you say, I'm going to scrap that and start again. It's really tough because as designers, I think the one thing I've learned is you all love to be perfect. But your first couple, you just got to power through. And it's great to see the whole onboarding experience and hear about your troubles. But I think what's really fascinating and where you really see the potential with Gravity Sketch is when you start to learn software that complement it. So I'd like to open this up back to you guys. And it's just for me as a newbie into the design world, if I can go onto Sketchfab and import, let's say, a chassis, I can then make a quick sketch, pop it into, I don't know, Viscom, reiterate it, and then finish it off in Twinmotion. And I find like that's like a nice, simple workflow that really gets a great product. With elements outside of Gravity Sketch, how did you find the learning curve there and, you know, integrating it into your workflow, if at all you have? Yeah, who'd like to take it? Sarah, I can see you shuffling forward. Do you use any other software?
Yeah. So I feel like that also was kind of um, a it was also helpful for me from Gravity Sketch to understand different, I guess, 3D formats. So like a mesh or like exporting different formats of a 3D model. I guess in that point in time, I didn't understand everything.
Mm.
So with time, that also helped me like, oh, I can bring it to Rhino and like do different things with it. Maybe I can have a more detailed outsole, for example, in Rhino, and I know I can make more of like, I guess, the midsole and the upper and the details on Gravity Sketch. So it was a good way to start like combining technologies, and then I guess like, for example, I don't know, like bring it to Keyshot for like a beautiful render, you know, with textures and um, all of that. And then also help me out. I guess I've mentioned 3D printing a lot, but it's just like it made me understand technologies also better in a way and connect things. And obviously, every project is different. You might use Gravity Sketch in a different way in every project. Um, but it really also helped me, yeah, understand more of like new technologies, new formats, and things that maybe you're not taught in design school, for example. It's just learning about new mediums in the digital world, I guess, and seeing what can work better for every project. You know, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Inti?
building off of that, I think that most of my projects, that aren't full Gravity Sketch have had very unique ways that Gravity Sketch mesh into that workflow. Sometimes it's towards the beginning, middle and end. And that's what's really cool about it, is that it's not, just like a one part of the phase thing. It's very dynamic. Um, yeah, I just, it's really interesting um, the way I continue every time I, um, approach a new project. I ask myself, what are the tools needed, and how am I gonna go about this? And it kind of, you know, appears, it shows itself to me, how Gravity Sketch will play its role. But yeah, it's really cool.
Nice.
For me, it's the options that it provides. Sarah kind of mentioned how it's easy to go to 3D printing. So like if you're at the point in a project and it's kind of like a pivoting point, you're like, do I want to take this into the real world so I can like have physical models so I can like compare them like that? Or do I want to take it more virtually and take it into Keyshot and experiment with different textures, patterns, and other stuff? So it gives you a wide range of options. And another thing too that I found is that, so ever since I learned Gravity Sketch, I essentially start making my base models in Gravity Sketch, and then if I want to push it further, I'll take it into another software. But Gravity Sketch, almost every time when I make a model in Gravity Sketch, it ensures that it's sealed and watertight. So when I export it to other softwares, there's not as many issues when I try to 3D print it and stuff. So just it makes it super seamless and stuff. So
Yeah. How did you pick up the skills to be able to make it watertight and get to that stage? What did you use to help you learn and get through that learning bell curve?
um honestly, it was just through the Gravity Sketch training and just my experience of 3D modeling prior to that, because I would use apps like Blender or Rhino, and then when I'd pull it into the 3D printing software, it'd be like there are errors with your model, like repair it, do all this and stuff. And so like every time it'd cause some uncertainty with that. But when you're working in Gravity Sketch, when you're because you're so intimate with the model, you're creating every surface, you're in there with it. It's kind of like, I like to compare to like kind of like sewing. You're sewing each individual panel together and making sure that like everything is seamless, and you get to be in the scene and see it. And so like it also just adds that level of confidence as well too, to know that like you can go inside the model and look inside out and stuff. And so I just like the certainty and confidence it also gives you.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the sewing. I'm going to use that one. No, but that's great. So do you think it's quite and please, Zara, Inti, but in here if you've got something to say as well. I'm just wondering, do you think it's quite intuitive when you've got experience from those other 3D softwares coming into Gravity Sketch? And like you mentioned, John, the 3D printed element, it shouts at you and it says something's wrong and you know how to fix it from Gravity Sketch. I mean, Zara, you mentioned that you 3D print a lot. Do you also find that that's the case?
Yeah, I think it does translate like the same. I mean, in the same 3D world, I would say like you start learning about these things here, right? Like different formats, different way of exporting a 3D model, and seeing how you have to repair the model because it's not watertight. It has a hole. You cannot 3D print it. You start learning about, I guess, how every part of the process works together to actually make something that could be possibly manufacturable. Um, but I think, yeah, definitely, I agree with what John said. One, because you're intimate with the model, you know, I guess maybe where the error is. I know you might know where some stuff might be a little not great, that you might have to go back, but uh, I guess that's what makes the process so beautiful because you're like connected with it, and you know where you're tracing each part of the surface and doing everything, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I stop butting in here, Jaron, and hand it back, I just want to open it up. Inti, have you had any experience with the 3D printing? How have you found, how have you been able to get into Gravity Sketch and make changes? How intuitive has it been compared to other software?
Um, let's see. Yeah, I mean, I've had experience 3D printing. Not,
Mm.
I've yet to print anything from Gravity Sketch. Usually, that at that phase, I'm either working in a different program. But I think answering the previous question of um, the other programs and all that, I think that just having an understanding of a diverse range of softwares allows you to understand the strengths and weaknesses. And so then, when you're working in Gravity Sketch, um, you don't have, what it's, maybe really good at or not good at, and you don't try to push it in a direction that it isn't meant to go. And
Mm.
that also applies with, more traditional modeling. If I'm working in SolidWorks, I'm not going to try to do something that is so, that excels in Gravity Sketch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really cool to know where it's beneficial.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what have we got here? This wetsuit looks incredible. I mean, the creases on the render was fantastic. Whose work is this?
It's it.
This
It's
is
you.
mine.
Oh, this is awesome. Oh, I like it.
I'm just popping up some of the work that you guys sent me. I'd love to kind of circle back around and have you guys just kind of like touch on a few points on some of the projects that you guys sent me. But yeah, we're showing some of your stuff here. Inti, do you want to just like touch on this a little bit in relation to the topic? Like,
Sure.
how did this
Yeah.
project
Well,
unfold for you?
yeah, this was that last project was a cool culmination of the skills that I've learned in Gravity Sketch, and just a good way to exercise those skills fully, all Gravity Sketch. And I really like what John said about the sewing, because one thing that I love about Gravity Sketch is designing around a person, whether it's a shoe or a different garment. I feel like a virtual tailor, tweaking every little line uh, to make something that's really refined, and it's so intuitive. It very much is. It's it's really an awesome use case for Gravity Sketch.
That's awesome. You're literally sewing. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was this particular project as well. Inti, this was this for a challenge that we ran? Um,
yeah, yeah. This is the Arctic Marathon Challenge.
Yeah, yeah, that was interesting. I think we want to. I'd love to do more apparel related stuff because I just think that it's an untapped uh, application for the tool. But yeah, impressive work, incredible work here, and I love that we're giving people a little bit of a sneak look. Also, by the way, I haven't mentioned this. I'll mention it again at the end. But if you want to go follow any of the students here on Instagram to see their amazing work, or any other place where you guys are posting stuff, we can share that at the end. But I want to go back to you, Sarah, because I was showing some of your stuff. I'd love for you to talk about the bags
Yeah.
and give just a little bit of a backstory on your process with this project. Um, and yeah, making this come to life and maybe some of the challenges. But yeah, please go ahead.
So the bag, I've never made a bag before this. So yeah, like I agree totally with what John and Inti said. It's like you're sewing virtually, sewing virtual tailor. It Gravity Sketch really helped me first, like understand how like ergonomics work. I guess, having that like mannequin figure person, to the dimensions and everything up to like a human form was super helpful to like see and understand how a bag would, like, I guess, drape over a person's back. It also helped me like in my process for this specific project, understand also pattern making. I wouldn't say I developed my pattern here, but it definitely helped me see like, oh, I can like you make a panel here that I would sew later, because then I was able to bring it to real life, combining it with Rhino. I have like this frame structure. At the end, it was kind of like a frame for a bag, but it was super helpful in my process to like see it come to life. It was a really weird form and shape, but slowly, like I made it work together, and then I was able to actually sew it in real life and understand straps and understand back panels and all of that. So it was a really cool process, and see it from the beginning to the end, it was like, wow, I made this happen. It was crazy.
That is such a cool project, and I love the way that you just like try to just work through the issue of the like, frame of the bag and how you were able to just think about. I'm assuming different, maybe different constructions or ways that it could come together. Um, did you find that maybe you were able to get through a few ideas to get down to the final one? What was that
Yeah, so
process
for
like?
this project, it was specifically for like a tour guide in a rainforest environment,
Mm.
and they are used to using dry bags. So my whole thing was like, okay, how can I like enhance the capabilities of a dry bag without making, I guess, a new bag for them? It's more like, how can I make like an accessory for the bag that they have? And obviously, the dry bag that they were using was like didn't have good weight distribution. Didn't have ergonomics. Didn't have, it wasn't structurally sound. And so I kind of thought around all of that, but also the environment itself, how it's super humid and they want to just dry stuff out. um, in some scenarios they don't want to keep those wet stuff that they encounter, and like they get wet crossing waterfalls, crossing rivers, right? So they don't want to put their wet clothes inside the dry bag. So how can I also make attachments for this frame so they can like hang stuff and like have different pockets for drying and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely it was really different idea, but it helped me a lot come to Gravity Sketch and understand how this could possibly come together, you know?
Awesome. Incredible work, Sarah. Thank you so much. And incredible work to you, Inti. John, I want to highlight you because we haven't gotten to you yet. So let's pop this up here. So tell us a little bit about this project, John.
So this is a project I was looking at creating a deadlifting shoe and preventing a problem when the ankle collapses at the bottom. And so looking at some products on the market that help align the ankle and thinking of ways to incorporate a similar geometry into the outsole of a shoe. And so I was able to model the shoe in Gravity Sketch and the outsole, and it allowed me to get all the orthographic views from that so I could pull them directly into Illustrator and create a tech pack directly from that. So it was super seamless. And then uh, it allows you to go into the model, and this shoe was specifically designed around like an open toe box shoe, so you can see how it's super wide platform, and then the slope from the lateral to the medial side helps with the alignment of the ankle. But it was super cool to be able to just create one model in Gravity Sketch and have all like the mood boards kind of surrounding it, to kind of support the science and other stuff behind it. So creating like a showroom to kind of walk people through like the research from the start, and then how that turned into products on the market, and then how that turned into models, and then how I integrated that into Illustrator and other stuff. And so these are more footwear designs that I use Gravity Sketch for. This one was thinking about more about using the toe strike to alleviate heel strain. Again, using Gravity Sketch for this allowed me to create multiple different models really quickly, to analyze different forms and other stuff. But it also allowed me to take it into other softwares like Keyshot and other stuff to take it a little bit further. So it's cool to be able to pull a lot of the tools that I use just generally prior to Gravity Sketch and be able to pull them all together, whether it be a slideshow that's just on the internet or like an actual presentation room that is through Landing Pad and stuff.
That is a great segue to a question that we got on the chat here. And I'd love to transition to that really quickly, and then we'll kind of close it because I'd love to show some new features and things like this because we're getting really close to time. Actually, if anybody has to, especially if you Oliver, if you have to jump, please don't feel bad. But the question is, could you share a more detailed story or example of how you started with Gravity Sketch and then exported to another software? So, what was that software? What are some softwares that you guys use along with Gravity Sketch? What is that process, specifically exporting to another program? If anybody wants to jump into that, if they feel they want to answer.
So Gravity Sketch has recently added like a bunch of new updates for the exporting. So previously it was just you'd have to know a little bit more about the nuances of the file types, but since they've changed that, they've added in just like there's like a button for Blender, there's a button for Rhino, and other various softwares like that that help you fine tune the settings automatically. So it makes it really seamless to bring it into other softwares like that. One specific use case that I used it for was I exported the shoe from Gravity Sketch into Blender, and used Blender to subtract the interior of the shoe from the exterior. And that's a common workflow that a lot of designers have been using for Zellerfeld shoes and 3D printed shoes like that.
Awesome. Anyone else, Sarah, Inti, or Oliver, if you have any comments on this?
Yeah, well, heck, I will.
Go ahead.
I loved what you said there, John. The export settings are a godsend for me because I'm not into the nuances, and you can still customize and tailor your export settings. But yeah, I'm by far no professional at that. Now, for me, I think the very first thing I did, I was actually being supported by another trainer here at Gravity Sketch, Andrew, absolutely phenomenal guy. And what I did in Gravity Sketch, I like to use it with the pass-through mode. I like to be able to see my environment and see how a product looks kind of almost in real life. And one thing that I did was I took my favorite shoe, and my favorite shoe is the Croc, people. So
Oh
I
my
took
gosh.
the lovely Croc, drew that in Gravity Sketch via a pass-through. And then what I did was I exported it to Twinmotion to come up with a beautiful render, which yeah, I was well supported by, again, Andrew, but also there's some fantastic YouTube tutorials that I think, Sarah, you mentioned earlier, but that was my real first experience of exporting out of Gravity Sketch. And now with that new export function, it's as simple as a click as a button. Yeah.
That's awesome. Was that Mater from Cars?
yeah, that is
awesome.
that is yeah.
I love that.
So
It's hilarious.
hit me up if you would like a lovely gravity sketch GOS model of him.
That's awesome. Sweet. Well, if anybody else wanted to answer that question, go ahead. But if not, yeah, we can transition over.
Nice.
All good. Thank you guys for answering that. That's a great question, by the way. If you're wanting to learn more workflows, Gravity Sketch workflows, definitely just check out more of our videos on our YouTube channel. There's also lots of other great videos that people in the community have made on that topic. You know, Gravity Sketch to X, Y, Z. So there's definitely a lot out there. So we definitely encourage you to check those out.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I just
No,
want to
please.
mention as well, if you ever have any questions or concerns, please head to help.gravitysketch.com, and we've got some great resources. And also get in contact with us on our website. You'll see a nice chat function, and one of our fantastic team will be able to help you with any sort of exporting or, well, anything else related with Gravity Sketch questions.
Great shout. Thank you for the reminder, Oliver. Yeah, no, that's an important one, actually. So, well, I just want to say thank you all for your time and for hopping in and sharing your experiences with learning 3D, learning Gravity Sketch. Oliver, from your perspective and your own learnings, obviously your observations too. And so I hope it's been enlightening and eye-opening to anybody that's watching now or watching the recording. Our goal is to just help educate on diving into 3D, expressing your ideas, whether it's with Gravity Sketch or however Gravity Sketch can help you along the way in that process. And so I wanted to share some new features that will be coming out soon. Oliver, if you have to hop off, I know we're like right at the mark. If you guys all want to stay, you're welcome to stay. But I was just going to show a couple of features and kind of explain them because I promised there would be a little bit of that, and then we'll just close it from there. Is that okay with everybody?
That's amazing. I will have to hop off, but
Okay.
thank you so much, Sara, Inti, John. This has been a pleasure. Jaron, don't leave it another year and a half.
All right. I won't.
Take care.
See you, Oliver. Thank you. Okay. You guys, I would love to hear maybe some of your reactions and your thoughts to some of these new features. But yeah, I promised in the little teaser content that we would show off some of these. So let me just pop some of these up here. I'm going to open them up. And I think they're going to touch on some of the things that we've talked about. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, the goal with Gravity Sketch is to help you express your ideas and bring your ideas into 3D. So we'll start with this one. This is our decimation feature, and this is from a much requested process where people are trying to import really heavy models into Gravity Sketch, and they're having a lot of trouble. And that's chassis or a lot of automotive, but we're really like we're seeing a lot of examples of this, not just in automotive. And so we have an automotive example here, but basically what you can now do is when you upload the STL, as you saw in the beginning, I'll actually rewind it. When you upload the STL into Landing Pad, and then you go to access it inside Gravity Sketch will automatically decimate that model so that when you open it in VR, you'll actually be able to control the level of decimation that you're working with the model. So it'll be much lighter in your scene. You can start modeling over it, sketching over it, making notes or whatever. So this is like the high poly version, I think. And then pretty soon in the video, it switches over from high to decent to low. So they have there's basically different levels of decimation there. So that's one. That's going to be coming soon in the new update. And if anybody out there has any comments or questions, definitely pop in the chat. John, you got something. Go ahead.
I can definitely see that helpful for bringing in 3D scanned models, because that's a lot. Like for footwear, you can scan a model or scan a last or something and bring it in, and being able to decimate it would make it so much easier to work with within the software.
Yeah, I encounter the problem of bringing sometimes really heavy files, and then I have to go back, because if you're working with Rhino and nerves, and then changing nerves to a mesh file can still make the mesh super dense. So sometimes when I bring it to Gravity Sketch, it's awful and my Oculus just like crashes, you know. But this is fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Inti, any thoughts? No worries. No worries if not.
Same, yeah, same reaction. Very cool. Less times that I have to take the headset off and tweak with, something else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's yeah, I've met some people in the community that are using a lot of scan stuff, kind of what you mentioned um there, Sarah. Just like it's crazy, like the how much it bogs the scene down and bogs your sketch down, and you just can't do anything. And that's exactly why the team made this. And so hopefully this will help all of you out there that are importing stuff into Gravity Sketch and you just want to use it as a reference. You know, it doesn't need to be super detailed. So hopefully this will help you out. Another one we've got here is, I think, a pretty big one, texture manipulation. So what this is just just like normal, you'll be able to import your reference images and apply them as textures, as materials. But as you can see here, you've got two sliders there on the bottom that allows you to control the orientation and the scale of the texture that you've just applied. And so hopefully this will help a lot of people out there that are trying to bring that extra level of visualization in Gravity Sketch and help control the way the textures overlay or lay across the surfaces a bit better. This tool is definitely not done. We're definitely receiving, taking in all kinds of feedback on this, but this is definitely our step in the direction of helping all of you express your ideas, not just in the shapes, but in the textures as well. Any thoughts from you guys on this or feedback?
I like how it's just cutting out another step in the design process, because traditionally, in order to like get a texture, have a like control over texture like this, you'd have to export the model and bring it into a different software. But being able to just do it seamlessly right within Gravity Sketch is going to save a lot of time.
Cool.
Definitely. And definitely for example, if you're working with a client and you want to show different materials in the same, I guess, present Gravity Sketch presentation or BR presentation, this would be super useful. You want to show different, yeah, materials or of like an idea or a product that you want to produce. I guess it's super useful.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. Inti, did you want to say anything or no? It's fine.
All good. Very
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool step in the direction of like you said, John, like eliminating that step, of going outside of Gravity Sketch to start with those because these will export as well. And so hopefully, with this, you can, because people often are taking models out of Gravity Sketch and bring them into other programs if they really want to take it down the pipeline. And so hopefully this will make that process a little bit more streamlined. So can't wait to actually see the community starting to use these tools and getting more direct feedback in the workflow. And then the last one I'll show here are GIF exports. So this one here, we have an export that you can do from, I believe it's Landing Pad, and there's 3 of them. I'm just showing this one, but this is called time lapse, where it basically just animates all the objects kind of like growing and expanding from your sketch. And I think it's really cool. So this is obviously a lot more just like the visual, maybe like presentation side of things. But we have this one. We also have like a rotate, just a regular rotate one, and another one that is trying to remember what it was, but it is, it's a turntable, time lapse, and viewpoints. So you can animate, you can export the viewpoints as well, which is really cool. So I think that this is obviously a really great step in the direction of just like showing off your work, in a really easy way. You don't have to go and animate it in another program. It's obviously very simple, but I think we hope that this will empower the community to show off their work a little bit more, after they've created something. And so, yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this?
So cool.
So cool, it's just fine as well.
No, it's super
Like-
cool because like you want to show off like an animation of your design, and sometimes bringing it to Keyshot and doing an animation can take a long time. So this definitely gets you excited and moving, and wanting to share your work, you know.
Awesome.
Definitely like you said, a more intriguing way to share your work, because like it's also leveraging the 3D aspect of the tool, because it's not just a still shot of like an angle of it. It's showing like the cross sections and building it in front of you. So it's really it's engaging, and I'm sure it would be really good for like social media and other stuff, showing off your stuff, because anytime there's motion and movement and stuff, it attracts the eye.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate your time. Um, let me stop this really quickly. Uh, Guys, thank you so much for sharing your work, sharing your experiences, sharing your workflows. Um, and I hope that everybody out there got something from this. I think they probably did. Um, if you have any more questions that you want to ask, just pop them in the chat after this live is over, and we'll happy to dive in and answer more of your questions. Um, in terms of people following you guys, John, Sarah, Inti, would that be Instagram? What do you guys suggest in terms of if you want people to go follow you? Where should they find you?
Instagram.
Instagram. Cool.
I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram.
Sweet.
Yeah, me too. Instagram and LinkedIn.
Great. Well, there's their names on the video here, but I'll make sure to link those in the description on the video as well, and you guys can go follow them there. Thank you all for watching out there that's joined us, and thank you guys. Really appreciate your time again today. And that's it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Rob. Thank you.
All right.
Have
See
a
you
good day.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.